Today's episode is sponsored by TCG Player. TCG Player is your trusted source for trading card games in the USA.
TCG Player sets the standard for all prices in the trading card game community, allowing you to look up what any card is selling for so you can know exactly what your collection is worth.
Marketplace data is used in stores and communities all around the world, so you never have to wonder if you're getting the right price when buying, selling, or trading cards. Don't forget to check out their mobile app to scan, shop, or sell.
Be sure to check out TCG Player to shop the latest cards in Magic: The Gathering. You can check out the hottest singles from Murders at Karlov Manor.
But TCG Player has so much more than Magic: The Gathering. You can pick up any other TCG you know and love, with card games like One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Lorcana 2. With a variety available on TCG Player, it's easily become our one-stop shop. If you'd like to check out their site and support our show, you can do so by using the link in our description to shop. Thank you again to TCG Player for sponsoring this episode. Welcome to the Scrybabies podcast. I'm Lewis Stardust.
I am Tori of The Vast.
Today we're going to be talking about how we became the Scrybabies and overall just content creators. This is something that has been highly requested for a long time, so we're excited to finally bring that to you. But first, today's featured patron is Voodooed. Thank you so much to Voodooed for being a patron for us over here on Patreon. If you want to support the channel, that is the number way to do that.
Way to do that.
What?
Number one way to do
Number one way to do that. Listen, we're having a time, okay? It's hot in here. The lights are on. I apologize, but it is the number one way to do that.
Yes,
there is a bunch of different tiers. You can get really cool tokens that Tori designs, as well as stickers every month. We are over on our Discord hanging out, and there's a bunch of great features. So you can go to patreon.com/Scrybabies to join us and be part of the group. Thank you again, Voodoo. We appreciate you.
You're the dude.
You're the dude. All right, so let's give a little bit of the Magic origin stories. So how did we discover TCGs in general and Magic: The Gathering?
I'm burping, sorry.
Keep it in.
So I first started playing trading card games as a kid. I definitely collected Pokemon cards when I was little, and my stepdad used to buy me all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Tins, and I loved them. I definitely played them incorrectly. My favorite way to play was, believe it or not, the Game Boy Color Pokemon trading card game and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games. Very, very fun. Very underrated games. Started playing those there. Kind of stopped playing card games for a very long time through high school, college, and etc. And then I started playing Magic because of my friend Mook Dubs. You may know Mook Dubs, the content creator, introduced me to Magic, actually. So that's how I started playing Magic, and I started playing Commander, and I loved it. I thought it was super fun.
That's awesome. I think it's like kind of similar. We're in the same age range, so I feel like a lot of our stuff is similar. But I too grew up playing the Pokemon stuff and Yu-Gi-Oh! And I collected Magic cards actually for a long time, but I never played the game. I just thought the art was really beautiful, and that's something I wanted to collect and put in my collection of trading cards. And I read about it in a book, like a random book. Some character was playing Magic: The Gathering, so when I saw it in the store, I was like, oh, that's it, and I picked it up. I really grew up on just like horror and playing Nintendo, and like the trading card game was kind of essential with those three items, and I feel like that's what really raised me. Yeah, I didn't start playing Magic until it was during COVID, actually, during lockdown. We kind of started playing around the same time.
We did start playing
we can absolutely get into
time.
that.
Very weird.
But I was living in Virginia at the time, and we'll get a little bit more into the first story for that because I'm going to talk about playing Commander. But individually, we started making content. So I know that you started making content, I think mostly revolving around Magic, but other stuff too, right?
It was just Magic.
It was just Magic. Okay.
I made a TikTok account because I was bored and I was watching TikToks. And then one day I thought of a funny joke that I saw with a trend, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do that and relate to Magic because that's something I've been playing a lot lately. And it wound up doing really well, and people really liked it and thought it was funny. So I was like, I'm going to make more TikToks about Magic. And then it just happened.
I kind of love that.
It just happened.
I grew up with a best friend who really liked doing my makeup, and other friends who liked taking photos. So I would just do a lot of like modeling for them. And this is how I got into my content creation. So I started doing modeling for a while, and then I started doing cosplay with it because I saw it on Tumblr and I thought that was very cool. And with the two of them, I was able to kind of curate a big online community and really just make a name for myself on the internet for the past decade. A lot of that does surround nerd culture. So I've done my fair share of like Pokemon cosplays and just general nerd culture stuff. And so I feel like they kind of went hand in hand. I loved playing D&D and tabletop games, and I did make some content around that. And so as soon as I started talking about playing Magic the Gathering, just like for fun, I wasn't ever expecting to make content from it. I just liked playing the game. A lot of my fan base was like, oh my God, we play. Let me send you my old cards. Let's talk about this. Let's build this deck. And so I thought it was really cool to see that, you know, my nerdy fan base who liked going to Comic-Con and stuff also liked this, because it wasn't something that was very represented there. You might see like 1 or 2 TCG booths, but I think now you're starting to see more of the TCG halls and events and things like that. So that was kind of my first like jump in there. What was it like for you the first time playing Magic? Because I believe we both started playing with Commander, which is not what most people recommend. We learned around the same time playing prior to Kaldheim's release.
So I learned on the pre-con, I think it was the Reap the Tides pre-con, and the one that came out with it with the guy with the sword. I can't remember his name for the life of me. And I thought it was really cool, so I went to the game store like a week after, and I bought the Mutate pre-con, which I totally played incorrectly. I did not know how to do Mutate. Like, I botched that stuff so bad.
It's hard to
learn. It was really hard to learn. Yeah. And I think learning Magic through Commander is a lot. I don't personally recommend learning Magic through Commander just because there's so many goddamn cards. There's so many mechanics. There's so much stuff. And it gets a little confusing.
But I think it's the thing everybody knows.
It's the thing everybody knows now. Mm-hmm. And it's almost, it's very casual and it's very friendly. So it is a good way to learn. I don't know.
I agree with that. I don't think it's my top way. We always talk about how Jumpstart and other things are great, but you know, it is the more like social aspect that people are looking for. So when you think about that, that's probably what you're gonna find in an LGS. A pre-con is the best way to like pick something up and like kind of learn is what they're putting out there. So
1000%.
Yeah. I learned how to play after I had moved to Virginia during the pandemic. I was playing a lot of D&D and I didn't have any friends because I worked from home and I was self-employed. And so I moved to this new city, and the way I wanted to do that was going to my local game store and found some friends that I played D&D with. I helped one of them with a favor. They were like moving, so I gave them like some curtains and some other stuff, and they tried to offer me money in return, and then I was like, no, I don't want your money. So instead they offered to teach me how to play Magic the Gathering so I could hang out for their game nights to play the card game. And I always joke that I should have taken the money because I've spent so much money on Magic the Gathering now. But overall, it was kind of the best decision. I learned how to play by just watching because I was too nervous to look dumb playing in front of a bunch of people that I had just met. And so I watched for a few hours and then immediately went to my local game store after. I picked up the AC Precon, which is my nemesis commander. It is awful. I did not like it. The next day, because I live so close to Star City Games in Roanoke, I went there and I picked up a bunch of Magic cards and some other stuff that I thought would look cool, which I think is like kind of a big deal to be like next to one of the biggest like trading card game stores ever. So that was like a really cool experience that I didn't realize how big it was until much later.
Exactly.
What was your first deck? Because we talked about our first pre-cons, but what was like the first deck you made or one that you like actively played?
The first deck that I built that was not a pre-con was Arabo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The kitty cat with Eminence. That card is insane. And I always think it's really funny because when I first played that deck and I got cards for it, I thought a $5 card was like, oh, that's insane.
It's expensive.
That's expensive. I was like, damn, this must be a really busted card to be $5. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't realize how like far the ceiling went. So that deck was like just really cool. It had a lot of good synergy because it was like a cat deck. I did like crazy cat lady. I had crazy like cats in there, and then I had angels and ladies. So it was all Selesnya, like green, white, cats and ladies. I took it apart because I did realize after a while that although it was very fun, it was not nearly as powerful as I thought it was. I took it to like an LGS because I wanted to go to like Commander Night and try playing it with people. And someone sat down because we needed a fourth really bad. And he's like, I have a Yuriko deck. And I was like, I have Eminence. I've got a Rabo. I'll be fine. And we got crushed. And that's when I realized what the power level was.
Yeah.
In the scale.
There's no like accurate like actual power level scale ranking. So like being a new player going to that, like there's no way of knowing. I've played like my old LGS, we would do like top tables. So we go to play casual or like competitive commander during the day, but it wasn't actually CDH. It was just powerful decks. And then if you won that round, you go to the next table, and if you won that one, you would get like prize support. And there would be days where people would come with the precon, and I'd be like, oh no, is this okay? So it's just like there's no way to accurately figure that out. My first deck was like that I actively played a lot was the Lathril Precon. I had played, like I said, the AC one and some other decks, but the first one I like really played was that. I still play it to this day. It's like my absolute favorite. It's such an easy one. I think like I wish that was still accessible because I think it's the best Precon for new people. It's so simple. And then the first deck I like really made was Kalia, which I think is really funny because we both built Kalia super early on. And I feel like that's like a very common trend for women in this community. I wanted a deck that was like super badass and had hot babes in it. And they were like, well, this is the deck for you.
Yeah, I wanted dragons. I went to the game store and I asked them, what's a good commander to play that involves dragons? Because I really want to play dragons, but I know that they're very expensive. So what can I do to play them? And they were like, oh, we'll show you Kalia. She's super popular. Everybody loves her. And I loved her so much that it became my namesake.
I feel like everybody's played at least a Kalia deck once or played against a Kalia deck for sure.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. She is that bitch.
She is. And I also think like I love Mardu. I like all those colors.
Me too. It's just such a fun deck. I had so much fun playing it. But I think it is funny because a lot of people I know have like, oh, I remember when I first started playing Commander and I built Kalia.
Why do you think it is? Why do you think she's that bitch?
I think she's that bitch because I'm sorry, but there's just like nothing better than winning in Commander with combat damage. Mm-hmm. It's just the best feeling ever. Like,
we're red players for sure.
Yeah, I'm like comboing off is cool and being like, okay, I'm gonna go infinite here and I have infinite mana. And everyone's like, yeah, okay. But when you're like, I'm gonna attack you for like 32 lifelink, deal 6 to every creature you own. It's just like
you're not even talking about the best part.
What, Master of Cruelties?
Cruelties.
Yeah, it's like the best thing ever. It's so much fun. And it's also just like once she's out, everyone's like groaning and it's like you feel like bad about it, but you're also like,
I'm the villain.
I'm not sorry about it.
Yeah. I think it's such a fun one because you're like, I get to cheat out these big creatures. It's playing a multitude of colors, and it's also just like a really fun concept. You get angels, demons, and dragons. So I think that's like an easy one that the girlies want to gravitate towards because she's like very strong and powerful. When I started playing Magic, I immediately bought every strong looking woman card that I could find, which was like Najila, Yuriko, Winota, like probably the most busted, but also I just was like strong like female Magic the Gathering cards, and that's like what I found. So that's something I love that's represented well in this game, is that women are strong in here, and that is something that I enjoy as a woman. So we touched a little bit about being content creators, but I don't think we talked about how we met. So let's give them the scoop.
How we met.
Yeah. We're besties and also lovers.
We're lovers.
Somebody did ask me that at a convention recently.
We'll get to that question soon. So how did we meet? Well, we met on the internet, as most modern love stories do nowadays, because we both are from New Jersey, the best state, the only state that matters. So we met online. We actually wound up talking through Twitter. I remember I followed Lewis Stardust and was like, wow, she seems really cool. She likes anime and cosplay and all nerdy stuff and magic, and she's cool. And she followed me back, and I was like, wow, she followed me back. That's pretty neat. And then we all started talking. I think you, me, and Beck, MTG girl, Beck, who is
Beck
now
Mom, Beck.
Beckbon, Street Fighter Beck.
We love Beck.
We love Beck. And we all started talking, becoming friends. And then one day, Lua messaged me and was like, I'm going to be in Jersey and I have extra tickets to go see this comedian, Curtis Connor. Would you want to go with me? So I have no one to go with. It's in East Brunswick. And I said, sure, I will go with you because I love him and that sounds like such a good time. So we met up there.
Yeah.
And we went to a comedy show together. And then, do you remember what happened?
I fell asleep.
Well, we both were falling asleep.
Yeah, they drove home.
But I drove her home because she was like, I gotta get a train. And I was like, well, I'll just drive you home. And she's like, I'm at my grandma's house. And I said, okay, well, I will take you to your grandma's house. And it was 5 minutes from my dad's, where I was staying.
Yep.
So we grew up a block apart.
Very close.
for our entire lives.
I think that's so funny too, because when I started playing Magic, I wanted to learn about the game, and so I went on YouTube and like, of course, you find Prof and Command Zone and stuff. But I was like, I want to find like cool women doing stuff. So I went to TikTok, I found Beck, and I found you right away, and I was like, wow, they're so cool and they're so exciting. And then again, it wasn't like me trying to make content or anything. I just enjoyed consuming the content and like learning, or like because you were so funny, I found that so interesting. And shut up. And then Tori's flipping her hair for everybody who's just listening to us right now. So when I messaged you, I was just like, she seems like really cool. She's tattooed. She's alternative like me. She's from Jersey. And then we found out we both lived in Virginia at one point. We have so many like weird, similar things. And again, living so close to each other for such a long time was like a very like serendipity, like weird thing.
Very
that I never
weird.
expected.
Very weird.
So it's pretty cool that Magic brought us together, even though we probably like ran in a lot of the same circles for like music and things like that back in the day. So that's how we met. Let's talk a little bit about how Scrybabies was born, because we had always been talking about what is being presented to us for content. I think it's since the 3 years that I've been doing Magic, it's definitely evolved with a lot more diversity in the space, and a lot more, because I mean, there's already diverse channels. Tabletop Docs, for example, Command Zone is very diverse, right? Like they bring on diverse guests as well, and those things existed, but there wasn't a lot of women doing things. So we have like Good Luck, High Five, EDH Hijinks. There's really not too many channels that are doing gameplay, and so we had been talking about this for a while, where if we ever were to decide to do something, we would just do it with each other. Yeah, that was kind of like the thing we would riff back and forth on.
Yeah, so we decided to yassify the Magic YouTube and joined forces. We both got invited to go on Shuffle Up and Play, which are really cool episodes you can watch there. And while we were going to Portland to film for Shuffle Up and Play, we were just like, you know what? Let's just do the damn thing, and let's make a show, and let's just do it. What's the worst that could happen?
the immediate looking at each other. Yeah, that's like definitely like a shortened version. We talked about it for a bit, and like I think it was August when we were putting it into fruition, like of actually starting it. We didn't release our first episode till January, and we had recorded in December, so it was actually a really quick process to start a show like this, which I don't think people realize how complicated it is. Even now, I think we got tagged on Twitter the other day where somebody was like complaining about just gameplay in general, and was saying, oh, what, you record a game for 45 minutes and it only takes like 8 hours to edit, which is like so not the truth. I want us to do like a little bit of a tour of just like our studio and kind of like do a BTS of like what it is like to record, because it is long days.
It's a very long day.
It's a very long day. We start sometimes at like 11 or 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. and we're done at like 9, and we're like, our guests get to have breaks because they're rotating through tables, but we have to sit all day and do it. And so I love doing it, don't get me wrong, it is like the most fun to do, but like that's only one portion of it. That's not including editing, that is not including the promotion we do on social media, that's not including working on sponsorships, handling our Patreon. There's so much that goes into doing content like this.
It's like a full-time job.
It is.
Yeah.
But we also have our own full-time jobs.
We also both have full-time jobs. Yeah.
So it is a lot. Which is like, we'll get into a little bit more about that later, but that's a little bit of how Scrybabies was born. I guess for you, is there any fear or reservations that you had going into making something like this?
I think my fears with it were, I'm one of those people where I am always worried about, well, I'm putting a lot of time and energy into this and a lot of myself into it, and I'm afraid of it failing, or not failing, but just not doing what we wanted it to do, or leaving somebody upset. Yeah. Like we didn't get, the viewership wasn't there, or people didn't like it, they didn't really enjoy it, and we might have to scrap it, and we put all of our time and passion into something for it to not really work out. So that was a big fear. Fortunately, we have so many lovely viewers and supporters that did not happen. It actually was the complete opposite. And this channel grew exponentially faster than I think we expected it to.
Yeah. There's been, and like for transparency too, like YouTube is like the most confusing thing in the world. The algorithm changes constantly. The rules change constantly. It is a very hard space to be in. Our first episode did extremely well for a first episode, let alone a CDH episode. And the episodes after that did very well too. It's really hard to not think about the numerical value of an episode when you look at something that like does like 40K and the next one does like 10K, right? I guess there's a little bit of pride in that, because I think we work really hard with what we do, and I want to put out the best content possible. And so when those don't get viewed, it kind of like sucks a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's not like what we're aiming to do. Like, I'm not going to set with you every day to be like, we have to make the top tier 100K content. Like, we're like, okay, we want to play fun games, we want to show people like our personalities, we want to introduce diverse people in this community, people we think that should be shown. We want to just have a fun, goofy space, which is what a lot of people up to us and say. They say that we provide them so much joy and laughter, and they just like our banter together, and the people who like the podcast just like listening to us talk, which I think is like kind of the unexpected part of this. Like, I always knew that we had good chemistry and people would enjoy it, but I didn't know it would be this much.
Yeah, I remember when we first started making the show, like, you even said, you're like, I think we could do, like, probably 2 gameplay episodes a month. And I was like, oh, I think we just do 1 gameplay episode a month. Like, it's just going to be a small little project of ours. And every once in a while, we'll, like, shoot a video, and then we'll have it edited. And once a month, we'll drop a cool video. No. It went, like, hardcore. It went into, like, there were some times where we had 4 gameplay episodes a month.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, it was great. The more the merrier. We were happy with that. But I think we expected it to be, like, way smaller and grow eventually. And we're like, yeah, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll make it bigger. But we were like, oh, wow.
After that first episode dropped, it was really hard to be like, oh, okay, can we meet that like demand? And we've tried a lot of different things. We tried like, which we could talk about, like failures and successes and pros and cons and hardships, which is kind of where we're at now. But like, even trying Scrybabies 60, which is something like I don't play as much. Like, I play competitive Magic for CDH, which is not like the same thing, but it is in a way. It's a competitive form. But I'm not playing like the 60 card constructed Magic as much as you are. I love playing Pauper, that's my thing, but I'm not like a, pioneer girly or a modern girly. And so we had talked about doing more stuff like that, because I think it's fun to showcase every part of Magic, and I think it's really cool to showcase the things that you're excited about and passionate about, and I wanted to learn those as well. And we had tried doing that, and YouTube is, again, so weird with algorithms where people didn't even know we were putting out those videos.
Yeah, people didn't know about it. They also weren't just getting the attention that Commander was getting, which is fine. We know Commander's a lovable format. I think it's entertaining, but it's very hard to be entertaining while playing sometimes, because you're focused on the gameplay. And I feel like that's the difference with Commander, is it's easier for us to like have a good banter, have a good conversation, make some jokes, because it's very unserious.
Yeah.
It's a social game. Like, it's serious, but it's not. Like, you're having fun.
I unfortunately think there's like a stereotype that the 60 card stuff can't be fun, which is not true.
Which is so untrue. And we were trying to make Scrybabies 62 show that, like, some people I feel like are intimidated by those formats. They think it's not fun. They think everybody's a spike. They think it's going to be scary. And it's not. People that, if you're new to the formats, people would absolutely love to sit down with you and still play with you. No one's ever going to be mean to you about it. But it is very hard to make content around, especially when we're a channel that is very focused on the entertainment side. Just wasn't there for, I guess, as many people, which was fine. We tried it. Maybe it'll come back one day. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay.
I think so too. I think there's like pros and cons to it, right? But I think it was something worth trying, and I'm happy that we at least got to try it. And again, if it comes back one day, that would be awesome. I know that like Prof's channel, for example, is like so big, and like playing with Power Play when they have tried doing that. But I just know that YouTube, which if you're not aware of it, is so specific that if you're like, hi, I'm a Commander Magic player, and you do anything that's not Commander Magic, they are going to be very confused and not know how to show your audience this. It is just very hard. And so when you are watching these videos, please, please, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. I know people say that all the time. It is so true. If the freest thing you can do to support our channel is literally retweeting, reposting, sharing it with somebody else, telling a friend, it is the like freest way to support us and make these things possible.
And it's so true. Like, I'll go on YouTube sometimes and I'll watch a video and be like, that was cool. And then I click to the next one and I'm like, I didn't even like it.
Yeah.
I didn't even like it. I didn't comment on it. I just enjoyed it, and that was it. And I went on with my merry day.
Yeah.
And you have no idea how much a like and a comment matters.
Yeah.
So please like and comment on all of your favorite creators' videos. Not just us, but all of them.
For sure.
Even if it's something like changing a light bulb, give that person a like.
We do have some questions that we're going to add in here, as well as some other stuff. So one of them that we had was from Voodoo Dude, who is our featured patron, which is super funny. They asked, what was the most difficult part of getting the channel started? What do you think people overlook in the process? Which we talked about the editing time for sure. Our editor, like a base minimum is like 13 hours, I feel like, for any editor that we've had.
I think to just generalize it, into this type of work with a plan is very important. I think the best thing that you could do, and the hardest thing for us to do, is we were like, all right, we need to get some cameras, gotta get some, microphones, and then whatever, we'll figure it out from there.
Which is very expensive, by the way.
It's expensive, so you definitely want to make sure you have a budget set and that you know what you're buying, and you don't want to you don't want to have to buy something twice. You want to just be able to get the right thing the first time. So doing your research on the equipment that you're going to need, always very, very important. I think it's often overlooked how much money goes into this at a startup cost. So my best advice to someone who wants to start doing content creation, even if it's not as big as a YouTube production show, even if you're doing something like TikToks or YouTube videos or a little vlog, always keep a budget sheet and always keep track of everything you're spending, whether it be cameras, whether it be postage, whether it be anything. Just keeping track of all of your spending and all of the equipment you buy comes helpful very, very much.
Tori is the budget person and the money person for sure. I'm like, this seems great. Do. So I appreciate that you are willing to take that part on, because that is the hardest part for me. Yeah, there's definitely, I think, a lot of stuff that gets overlooked as far as like how much work goes into this, because if I'm being fully transparent, there's sometimes I don't get a day off. I am constantly checking things, updating videos, talking to our editors, working on things, writing podcast episodes. Like, you do a ton of it too. You mail out the things, you do the art for the show.
Yeah, I want all our little patrons to know. And if you're going to become a patron, I handwrite every address and I stuff every envelope and I lick every envelope, and it takes me 5 hours to mail them all out. But I sit there and do it with a smile.
Yeah, we don't have like a team that works behind us.
We don't have any elves.
We don't have any elves. Ian's the closest thing possible, and he works for us for free, basically, which love you, Ian. Thank you. But it's not a cheap thing to do. We've like lost quite a few episodes this year because our camera malfunctioned. Then we had to spend, almost $900 on a brand new camera. We try to budget for emergencies and stuff like that, but that is like, the beginning when we started doing this, like we started Patreon, it was very surprising to me that we started the Patreon earlier than before we actually launched, and people had joined it because they wanted to support us, which I thought was very cool. And that made it so we were able to start doing this, but that's not including like the cost of equipment, like I said, feeding our guests, making sure that we can pay our editors, making sure we can take care of ourselves. In the beginning, we were paying out of pocket to like...
Yeah, we put out a lot of money up front for this project. We had no backing at the time. And also the entire first year of Scrybabies, we did not take any money as a form of payment for ourselves. Nothing.
$0.
Not $1. All the money went right back into the show. So that's something you have to understand too. Going into content creation is you're probably going to perform at a loss for a while. But that's okay, because you shouldn't be doing it just for money anyway.
Since we talked about hardships and pros and cons, we talked a little bit about the cons, but what are some like pros of doing this? Like, what are some of your favorite things, or just what do you like about making content like this?
So my favorite thing is I very much enjoy making people laugh, making content, and knowing people either enjoyed it, laughed at a joke I made, whether it be on TikTok, YouTube, whatever. That always makes me feel really good, knowing that I brightened someone's day just a little bit. Oop, I punched the mic. I think the other pros of it are meeting a bunch of really cool people. You get to go all over the country. We've actually went to Canada. We went outside of the country and met a bunch of cool people.
That was awesome.
Played a bunch of cool games. We got to go to MagicCon as invited guests. We go to like the cool conventions of the STG as invited guests. There are a lot of pros to it. And there's also cool little meaningful conversations you'll have with people where you don't realize the impact of what you do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you've had someone probably come up to you and tell a cool story, but like one of my favorites was I went to an SCG and someone came up to me and was like, oh, like I love your channel. I built the sliver deck that you have that you played on your channel because my son plays Magic and I wanted to start playing with him. And now it's something that we both do together and go to the game store together and play Commander together because I watched your channel and liked your deck. So now me and my son have something we have in common and spend a lot of time with together. And I thought that was awesome. I was like, wow, that's a really cool bond with, this guy and his kid because he watched our channel. And like little things like that are just like, oh.
I think we have like just the best supporters, fans, like followers, whatever you want to call them, in the world. Like, they are so nice to us. We have like one of the biggest lines we've ever had. I talk about that all the time in Vegas because I'm like truly shocked by it. But just seeing like the cards that they bring us to sign is always really funny. Just seeing how much we impact them talking about their favorite episodes, moments, guests that we've had, like that stuff is really special. I also really love how much people love your art.
Yeah.
I think you're a fantastic artist, and it's really cool getting to see people get really excited about the type of tokens you make and stuff like that. I really I don't know. I think we're lucky that this has been so positive with our fan base. And even when we're like, hey, our mics are shitty and broken this week, people are like, we'll still watch the episode.
Yeah, they still watch it and they deal with our crappy mic sounds.
Yes, so we definitely do our best. Somebody said, our patron Lux said, outside of being badass good people, how do you grow a following with meaningful connections and relationships? Which I feel like is pretty much about what we're talking here about at this moment. And I think that is just like being our authentic selves. Like, we could not be more us on camera. There is no like finessing or personalities or alter egos. It's literally just us being two goofy girls from Jersey. Like, that is it. Yeah.
And we're like authentic all the time. Like when we have our Patreon nights where we're playing games or we're building decks or something, that's just who we are. You know, we don't try to put on an act or anything. It's just,
I think the two of us really value transparency as well. Like, get off topic a little bit, but even with our business relationship, I think like it is not easy to get into business with your friends or anyone in general. And so I think being transparent about what our fears and reservations are, the things that we're excited about, making sure like you have a goal, I have a goal, they might be different. Let's try and see how we can achieve those for each other so that our goals are met as well as our shared goals. I think that's really important to try and make sure that we are listening to each other and growing the channel in the way that, you know, there's something that we think is valuable, but it is a mistake or it does not perform well, then we can have those conversations. I think we're really good at doing that. And I think we're real friends. So it makes it like a really fun and interactive space. And I think it shows. So that was a lot of words about work. I apologize. I would love to know some of your favorite moments of things that we did in 2023.
I think going to Film with Quest for the Jank Lords was really, really cool. We got to go do that at MagicCon, and that was a really good time. I think some of my other favorite things were, did we go to Canada?
Well, no, so Canada was actually
December of
was the end of 2022, but it went into 2023.
Christ.
For me, my favorite thing was, besides like staying at a creepy hotel, hanging out with our friends, like filming in the snow, it was crazy, but I love the fact that when we were leaving Canada at the airport, our episode of Shuffle Up and Play had aired. So we were watching it there after we came back from doing our big collab. And then that week we filmed our first episodes. And so like, I'll always remember those because it was just everything back to back. And not for nothing too, like we had only been playing Magic for 2 years or like not even that long. And we took this big step. So getting to do that and go into 2023, I think was really great.
I agree. I also think it was really cool because I moved to Philadelphia and then like conned you into moving here too. So it worked out really well. That like, that's another cool like thing that has to do with content, but it doesn't, is like, we both moved to this like new city that we both never lived in before, but have been to often. And we both kind of get to be like, let's go try this place. And it's cool because we already have a buddy to go do that with. So we're not like alone in this new city.
It's really nice. Cool. I like that too. When I look for places, I look for ones that are close to Tori and Ian's. Like, we need to just find the right place. I'm like, but how close is it to Tori?
Yeah, I have to, that's very important. We have to make sure we're at least within 20 minutes.
We'll get back into more of like our favorite moments, but I just want to point out too, as we're talking about this, it is so important as business partners too to make sure that we are having time as friends, because there's some days where we're just talking so much business where I'm like, okay, we need to be like, Wednesdays are our business day and like we film on these days and that's whatever, but also like, let's get together and go make our Taylor Swift candles, or let's have our Twilight movie nights, like making sure
go out
that
for dinner,
even
stuff.
if it's once a month and you guys do something that's not work or magic related, I think that's really special and a really great way of like strengthening a business relationship. I think that's really good.
Team building.
We actually did team building at the end of the year.
We did an escape room. If I'm ever captured, I will simply die.
No, you were great. We did an escape room and we had dinner with our one of our editors and Steve and Ian, and I thought that was like a really great way of doing that, because we're not like an official business or anything fancy like that, but it was a good way to like show appreciation for our team in general, which was really cool. So other favorite moments, I really liked getting to, all the guests we had this year actually were fantastic. I don't think we had anything where we were like concerned. The gameplay was great. Everybody was really fun. Everybody was really like down to roll with the punches if our cameras had issues or if something else happened. I think obviously an episode we talk about a lot is the one we did with Lady and Rachel. I think that was really cool to have like our first all-female pod. And yeah, getting to like get some of our dream guests checked off the list was really cool. Getting to just make good content that we feel good about was some of my favorite stuff. What are some of your goals for Scrybabies?
That's a great question. So I'm hoping that with Scrybabies this year we'll continue to see a nice uptick of success. Really hoping that the podcast does well because we have so much fun recording these episodes. It is just such a nice change of pace from just doing gameplay. I would like to see Scrybabies maybe eventually partner up with the other West Coast channels out there. I know there's Commander at Home, there's Game Nights. I think if we got on Game Nights, that'd be
pretty cool.
wild. And now we're also in the ambassador program. So I think all of like the realistic big goals we have, we're like almost watching achieve in real time, which is really neat.
Yeah.
Like I said, like did not anticipate this to get as successful as it did so fast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think my biggest goal for sure is like to keep this podcast stuff going. It was like a thing we just briefly talked about, and like you guys seem to really like it, which is really cool. And it's very fun for us to just like talk about things and hang out together in a way that's not like laser focused gameplay. We got to go fast, which is cool. I have the same kind of goals. Like, of course, like maybe a numeric scale would be great. Like maybe we hit 50K this year and that's awesome. But I just want to make sure that we do some unique content and we try to bring some stuff that's like, again, authentic, the same Scrybabies. So maybe we do different types of videos or we dress up for them. Like I bought a freaking alternative dress for Outlaws of Thunder Junction, so when we get the precons we can play them. We did dress up for our other precon game that we lost because our mics were not great, which is something we're working on. So that is a big goal for us this year, is to make sure our gear is just pristine. Accidents will happen, things will happen, but as long as we get to like the right amount of perfection as far as the mics and audio and cameras go, that's all I care about. So that's kind of like my big goals for us. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to start a Magic the Gathering channel? We talked a little bit about the financial aspects earlier, but is there any other, we talked about expectations and stuff like that. So
I think for starting a Magic channel, I guess my best advice is to make sure you're doing this for the love of the game and that you are having fun doing it.
Yes.
Because the second it is not fun, it's just not worth it.
I've always said that about cosplay too. I was like, if I ever just like don't think it's fun, I'm just not gonna do it anymore.
And I also think that a great piece of advice for somebody going into content creation in general is to remember that you need to also step away from things at times. I feel like going into content, you start to blur the lines of personal space, boundaries, and time.
Yep.
And going into content, you constantly feel like you need to be on. Yep. You don't need to be constantly on. You don't got to reply all day. Make sure you spend some time for yourself.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for going full-time with content in general, and even with this, is like setting an actual schedule for yourself. It took me like 6 years to actually get to a rhythm of a schedule. And there's like months like this where it's just too crazy to do it. Yeah. So I think if you're saving like, now I answer messages Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I never do it past like 4 or 5 p.m. because that's going to be my time to like be with my partner and have dinner and play with my pets, right? So making those boundaries for yourself, which is a thing we do in therapy. I've been in therapy really working on those boundaries. And so I think that's really important for us as just humans to set boundaries, but especially if you're making content, because especially with it being on your phone and things like that, it never stops.
And I think a good thing too with Magic is in Magic content, there will be a lot of opportunities that present themselves to you, whether it be attending an event or guesting on a stream or playing with someone at a show or doing something. Say yes to things you want to do, but also don't feel compelled to say yes if you don't think you can, because you know you're going to have to give more of yourself than you want to, and it might stress you out, but you're afraid the opportunity won't come again. It's going to be okay. Say no to things, because saying no to things also means you're saying yes to yourself, and it's important to do that.
You can also say maybe later or next time. You don't have to say no, never. You could just say this is not the moment, but I will be happy to do that. Yeah. I'm a firm believer in like things that are meant to happen for you will happen for you. I think you have to work hard for them for sure, but saying like in the same vein as what you're saying, you can do those things later. It does not have to be right now. So we're going to take viewer questions in a second, but our last question that I have for you, since we're doing this podcast now, which is pretty cool, what are some topics you're hoping we cover on here?
So I'm hoping that we get to continue doing more set reviews. I think those are really fun. I think it's exciting. We're very, very fortunate to be in the ambassador program to get access to the cards and all of the information early, because it allows us to share all the information with our viewers at a very reasonable time. I'm hoping to cover more topics with viewer questions. Definitely more stuff about behind the scenes, what goes into making content, what goes into recording episodes, just a lot of the back end stuff I think people don't know a lot about and how it works and the cogs that turn to make what you see happen.
I think maybe we do like a timer
Mm-hmm.
of just like the day to see like how long it goes and set like a time lapse of that. Maybe we have like our editors in a vlog just to be like, hi, here's how today's gone and like what I've done. I think
Yeah.
that's interesting too.
I think it's also interesting, like, even outside of just like magic in general, like we were talking earlier about YouTube shows you might like. You might like video essays or, you know, come watch me play this game. Like, there's so much that goes into it. And I think being able to know how much work some of these people do just for your entertainment, it just brings a different like level of appreciation and understanding.
I think so too. It's like I say this all the time. I'm like, everybody should be required to work in the like what would you say, like service industry.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was like fast food industry. That's not it. Being a server has taught me so many just general life skills and how to be a good person, if I'm being honest. And so I think that's like the same kind of vein, like getting to walk in their shoes and really see what people go through is as far as like the work that they put in, I think is so important. I've had so many people like reach out to us who have been like, you know, your show brings me so much joy. I'd love to support you. Here's like, you know, me subscribing on Patreon, or here's like a gift that they give us at an event to just be like, you brought me joy by doing this thing. It must be so hard to do it. And they've expressed like it is not, like, some people know it's not a easy thing.
Yeah.
It is a rewarding thing, and there's lots of rewarding aspects which we'll get into in a minute. So we got a bunch of our patrons on here. Thank you so much to our lovely patrons. We're going to go through a couple of these questions. Wells, our fave. Wells is also our mod. We love Wells. They asked, what has been the most rewarding part of creating Scrybabies for each of you? So we've talked a little bit about our personal interactions, but is there like, what do you feel like is the most rewarding thing?
I think it's just like all of the cool memories that come with it, and like being cheesy, like I get to do this with my friend, we get to have the best time, and like it's just really fun. I feel like if I was doing this by myself, it would not be as rewarding. It would not be as fun for me. But like we get to do this thing that is like a cool passion project, but it's also like we're hanging out.
We get to travel together.
We get to do a bunch of cool stuff. So it's just fun. It's like our cool friendship with really cool opportunities because we do this.
I think like we've touched a lot on like our fan base, our viewers, our supporters too, but like even just hearing like women come up to us and talk about the diversity in the scene, people saying that we've made magic feel accessible to them or we brought joy, like those are for sure the things that have like made me like, there's definitely hard days. We've had days where we're like, okay, this is like our camera breaks or something else happens and the two of us are like absolutely defeated and done and exhausted, but then we have those moments that we can remember and things we could talk about and things that we've accomplished. We have accomplished so much individually as content creators, together as friends, and also through Scrybabies, that it's very hard to get out of those pits that we put ourselves in. I've cried on set way more times than I'd like to admit, and Tori's always been there to like pull me out of that. So I just think that the rewarding aspect is being able to like, I don't know how long we're going to do this. I don't know. But when we're old and gray, we could be like, hey, remember that time we played with this person? Let's watch that video. And I think that's really cool. Yeah. So I'm glad it brings joy to people.
Can't wait to be 90 years old filming
I know.
What's the Best Commander in 2072.
Not me crying thinking about us being old together. Current TV also said, I wonder what the setup for recording a Commander game looks like. We're going to do a video because we've been talking about this. I think we should really show what it is to record this, the gameplay, everything else. So we will absolutely do that. Absol Chimera, which is my friend Max from Virginia, who I met playing Magic, said, how do you schedule to have other people on the show? What goes into that process and how much of a headache is having schedules align? We love Notion. Notion Google Calendars are the chef's kiss. We kind of just like make a wish list. We have like a giant list where I kind of just organize where everybody's from, like city-wise, where they're based, what formats they play, because we were doing other content before, and maybe some suggested guests that might be a good pairing with them. We kind of do shoots together. So like we'll use the CDH gameplay, for example. We had Ken fly in. That was the first guest that we ever flew in to come play with us. So Ken Stack DDH came to play, and then we just got all of the Philly locals that play CDH and the Rhode Island boys. So we had Alan from Mental Misplay, Howling Salt Mine, Tyler, Cam, and Dylan from Play to Win, and then Mod came too. Was that everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of people. Plus
it was a
Ian
wild weekend.
Yeah, it was a wild weekend. And so fortunately, a lot of those people were local. We threw out some dates, see what, stuck the most for people, and they came down. So it's a lot of, we filmed for 2 days, and it is a lot of being like, okay, the first game is this person, Cam and Dylan. Dylan's going to sit in the seat, Cam's going to leave, we're going to fill somebody else in, then that person's going to stay, and we rotate them out so everybody has a break where they're not sitting all day like the two of us are. As far as like scheduling, like again, I give Tori like my wish list. She gives me like 5 of her wish lists, like our dreamies for the year, and we try to get them scheduled in. We have a big shoot date that's coming up in both March and April where that's going to be a lot of content. So it's a little bit of just like planning and scheduling, especially when there are multiple days. We want to try and make sure we can record as much as possible, but also not be dead at the end of the day. What else do you think is like important for our scheduling?
I think we try to look at our like weeks in advance to see like what's going on, what weekend looks good. And then we also try to figure out like what time we want to record, what pod we want to have, what time we're going to do a lunch break.
Yeah.
And then we also schedule just like little business meetings throughout the week where we're like, okay, well, what do we need to work on? What should we do here?
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of back end stuff that we do too. Like,
we've been talking about also doing like, because we want to make sure that the content is a little more unique besides the gameplay, so we could be like, what's the best monocolor commander? So we're trying to ask players what kind of decks they want to play so we can make sure our decks work really well with those or provide something unique and different. So there's a lot of that kind of planning that goes into it. Cal said, how did you decide that you really wanted to try it big rather than just dipping your toe in? I know that's a strange question, but y'all really jumped into the deep end of gameplay immediately on the production side. Like we talked about, like, I don't know what actually set us off because we had been talking about it and making jokes and like saying stuff, but like I don't know what the factor of us being like, okay, it's time.
I think we were just talking about how like we thought gameplay shows were cool, like Tabletop Jocks was really cool, game nights on Command Zone and all of that channels. And we were like, wow, there's really like not a lot of women doing this. It kind of sucks because a lot of again, I hate to sound like I'm being a hater. It's not trying to be taken this way. A lot of the other bigger channels have a lot of the same bigger folks on there.
It is.
And again, we totally get why, like those people are great and they deserve the following they have and they deserve to be featured on channels.
Well, also a lot of them live near each other.
A lot of them live near each other too. Exactly. But a lot of the same faces were seen and we were like, wow, it's kind of stinky that there's so many cool people we also know who are over here who are a little underrepresented and they're probably, not the first thought to be on some of these channels. Let's put them on our channel. And it kind of, is unique, but also helps boost them a little bit too. Like, get to see little smaller channels grow. And that's just really cool. Like, here, even having Mook on here, like, I think Mark's one of the best creators out there. And this was, I think, his first Commander gameplay show.
I think it's really fun because that was one of your first, like, friends that taught you how to play, how to do this, and that was really cool for me also too. Like, I don't think I mentioned this, but Lady and I have known each other for a long time with just doing cosplay, so it was really cool getting to like bring her on the show and do that too. Granted, she's well known, so is Mark, but like it was just very different and like special to have those kinds of moments. So I enjoyed that a lot. We did get some questions about the competitive play, and I think we are going to do a podcast all about like the competitive aspect and how we went from doing casual to that. So we will have that coming out soon for you. Was there any other notes or things you wanted to mention about just like us making content and Scrybabies?
I think the only other thing we could touch on is we did decide to go big. We didn't dip our toes in with something smaller, but I think we were also kind of doing our own smaller things anyway.
As individual content creators.
As individual content creators, we kind of were doing our own sketches on TikTok and on Instagram. So we figured this was the best venture to go in together as a partnership and as a thing. Was to go full gameplay.
I enjoy watching this is the question I kind of have all the time, is like, what is the longevity of gameplay? Because you can always watch new things, but how often is somebody gonna go watch an episode again? Which I actually do. There's a few ones where I'll be like, that was really fun, I'm gonna watch that like again in 2 months, or I like go back to it, or there was like a really cool thing that I want to watch again. But with gameplay, that's like the question of being like, well, how much replay value does that have? I think the podcast, you can for sure listen to podcast episodes over and over if you want to do that. We're not doing like the educational content. We are a little bit in our podcast now, but we're not, doing the prof thing of being like, what is the best deck for this? What is this best deck box?
Yeah, and I think with gameplay too, it kind of holds the test of time in the sense that The decks still work because of the format that they are, which is why I think Commander gameplay was the smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Cards get banned all the time in Modern and Legacy and Pioneer. Standard rotates out.
That was the hardest thing about recording those games
every time
too.
we recorded a game for 60 card channel, something got banned, literally like clockwork every single time. So the episode didn't make sense anymore. But Commander, the ban list is very short, and a lot of the cards we play are not ban list worthy. So those decks will still be relevant. They will still work. Even if they're not the most popular cards anymore, they are still legal and they still are fun to play.
That's a little bit about, I say a little bit as we're like 50 minutes into this, about Scrybabies and how we got started as individual content creators. And if you have any other questions, we are planning on doing just a general Q&A, so you can ask those questions down below. And if you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, you could do so on Twitter. You could ask us those questions there. And again, if you are listening on those sites, make sure you leave us a review. Leave us a nice review. Let us know how we're doing. Tell us you love this podcast, because it makes us excited to read and see all those little stars go up. So yeah, thank you for listening. That's all I have to say today.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy this kind of content and you want to support us, check out our Patreon and our Bonfire. It is the best way to support the show. And the easiest way to support us is by liking and sharing. It matters so much. So
much more than I think people think.
Much more than you'd realize. So go throw us a like or a thumbs up. Not a thumbs down. I'll be sad. And we will see you next time on the next Scrybabies podcast.
Bye.
Bye.